Don't mind me as I just set all of our stuff up here. We're going to be presenting today, and we're happy for you guys to join us in the virtual land. All right. So, welcome. This is our Dreaming Well workshop, part 2 out of 9, encouraging healthy sleep patterns for our program, Dnaagdawenmag, Path of the New Heart. So just a little bit about me, get to know us. And unfortunately today we do not have Lori, but if you guys come to the in-person sessions, you'll be able to meet her. So my name is Cody Atwood. I'm from Cranbrook, British Columbia. I moved over this way about 2 years ago, but my grandmother is an elder in the Dnaagdawenmag Nation, which is a nation that spreads over 30,000 square kilometers all the way up from northern down into the United States near the Tobacco Plains in Montana. So I'm very excited to be here. You know, dreaming, sleeping, it's a big factor of our lives. And I myself need to work on my sleep. Last night, actually, I got one of my better sleeps that I have had in a while. So maybe it's because I've been implementing some of these strategies, but I'm looking forward to hanging out, talking with you guys. So, miigwech.
Thank you, Cody. Hi, everyone. My name is Karina Safi. I'm a behavioral consultant from CBHS, Mackenzie Health Hospital. Also love sleep, also struggle with it. So although I am familiar with some of the strategies and I do implement them from time to time, but I think, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more today, I think my problem personally is the consistency of implementation, which I will be very transparent, I lack. So maybe going through this information today again might help me. So I'm excited to chat more about sleep today.
Miigwech, Karina. So, we're going to skip over our housekeeping today just because we're recording. But this is what we're going to get up to. So, we're going to do our opening led by moi. We're going to get into our intro into sleep. Then we're going to segue into routines and rituals. From there, we're going to kind of take a peek at the medicine wheel and what that looks like on a more close scale. And then we're going to go into closing. So our opening smudge, I have my trusty smudge bowl here with me. It was gifted to me by the agency, this gorgeous shell. I got some cedar in here and I have some sage, pinch of tobacco. I'm gonna light this for us. And if you guys have your medicines while you're watching, feel free to use them, but I'm just gonna use this as a time to be grateful, have my gratitude that we're all here, you know. And as this smoke rises, I'm gonna think about good intentions. I'm gonna use this as a time to clear my head and really get in that space for learning and open up my mind, open it up for today's teachings, invite spirit to this conversation to help guide us. I'm also going to give you guys this virtual smudge. Take it in, take it in. Oh, we got lots of smoke today, saying we need it, right? Then I have my drum here with me, so I'm just going to take a moment really quickly to smudge my drum as we use it. My drum is new. She was birthed not too long ago now. I'm just going to smudge. Then we're going to get into our fun song today. So I wanted to keep it lighthearted and, keep it fun. But for a moment, I'm just going to stop sharing while I can sort out my mic. So then you guys can hear me and you can hear my beautiful singing voice. Okay, we're all set up. Let me share that again. Can you see the slide?
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's all good.
Awesome. So this is the Itsy Bitsy Spider, but this is in Anishinaabe. And the direct translation is the little bitty spider did climb up, it did rain, and she went down. The sun came out and dried up all the water, and the little bitty spider went back to climbing up. I think that's so cute and so sweet. And I also think it's a good segue into talking about the topic that that we're presenting today, which is sleep and dreaming. And, I think lullabies are especially important to doing that lulling before bed and finding that calm, but also about bringing out our inner child and just to have fun with these things, right? So I'm gonna say the phonetics first before I sing, so then if anyone wants to repeat this later, then they kind of have an idea of how it's sung. So it goes, Asabi geishi gia quando way. Asabi geishi gia quando way. Gi gimme wanga iji bonga shin. Gi gimme wanga iji bonga shin. Gize so giba ga kinanabe. So that's very fast at the end there. Ga kinanabe. It's like it rolls off the tongue. And then we go mini wa. So it goes mini wa. It's kind of like a up and down very fast. Mini wa. Ashabige sheniyabgi kwando way. So let's put that all together. And Courtney, you'll have to let me know if you can hear the drum, but maybe I'll bring this back.
I'll show you a thumbs up.
Awesome. Okay, let's start. I always like to say that these lullabies are a bit of a tongue twister, but they're fun to do. So I think just have fun with it and try it out yourself. But I'll stop sharing, fix my mic, and then we'll get on our way. Let me put this baby to the side now. And I always like to, we like to wrap them up because I learned that our drums are never to be facing down towards the earth, but also they have a great connection to creator. So we also want them to be on something when we place them somewhere, right? So we want to have a layer between whatever they're on and the sky world. So that's what I learned, but I'll share again. All right, and Corinne, you'll just have to give me a thumbs up. Yeah, perfect. All right. So just a little reminder, and I think this was cute because when we did this presentation in person, one of the people who came to our presentation said that they sing their child Hotel California every single night. And I think that's just a little nod to how any song, any music, and any traditional music can be in the language. And it can be a good lullaby, depending on the cadence, tone, and volume in which you sing. Marianne Spencer shared this with me. So now whenever I hear a song, I'm like, ooh, could that be a lullaby? Could we use that, right? So yeah, it's just depending on how you sing it. But this workshop is designed to address mild sleep problems, and it's definitely important that if you're experiencing or if there are more severe or complex sleep issues in your home, then we recommend that you seek professional consultation. And then we're just going to hop right into our first teaching, which is the Dnaagdawenmag board teaching. So let me get this set up for you guys. I'll have to share with sound too. All right. Karina, can you see this? Perfect.
Listening to these teachings, it talks about how, we're nurtured. We're nurtured as those young children. It's called a Dnaagdawen, and it's actually a cradle board that our children are put in at an early age. And they're put in there for a reason. They're put in there at an early age so that they can watch life, so that they can experience life. And again, we put them in there at an early age because we don't want to insult their intelligence. So if they're watching us, they were taken everywhere. They were taken blueberry picking, birch bark picking, medicine picking. They were taken everywhere so that they could watch life. And in the midst of that, watching life, they're learning how those seven grandfather teachings guided their parents. So really, it was a lot around role modeling, and they would be in those Tiknogans, and they would be watching. And the Tiknogans were made from the land. Again, everything came from the land, and they were made in a way that really represented how the parents felt about that young child. Those Tiknogans, those baby cradles, were fashioned by the father or maybe an uncle or somebody who had those skills, and they were made out of a cedar back, and then the handles were made out of black ash, so that they wouldn't be that heavy. Like cedar's very light, and black ash is a very light material. And that's the indigenous intelligence again, because it was the mothers usually who carried the babies on the cradle. And in front of the little babies, there was it was like a guard, but that was the handle. That was the handle to where some things were hung. Like there was a bear. I think there was a piece of bear hide. There was a piece of leather. There was different things that were hung on the handle of that Tiknogan to also affirm to the baby that they belong here, that, because they're still fresh from the spirit world, and because of how beautiful it is sitting with Moshomus, the grandfather, they were reminded that they're here now. This is their place. And those were the type of teachings that were given, around that Tiknogan, and to help them feel accepted. So, and they were made by, again, everybody contributed. They were made out of moose hide, and the women would sew gaoyake, which is quill work. It was sewn onto the outside of the Tiknogan, because it showed the baby again the care that they would be given when they were growing up.
All right. Think what? Oh, there I am. Peekaboo. Okay, so yeah, that teaching I think is really important to what we're doing here, which is creating a sense of safety, creating a sense of security for our children, especially, going into bedtime and stuff. So I think it really speaks on how to promote that and how to really wrap our arms around that child. That I think that's beautiful. So we'll move on here. Let me get all set up again. Okay, yeah, so we're gonna hop into two-eyed seeing and sleep practices. So two-eyed seeing, what is it exactly? It's learning to see from one eye with the strengths of indigenous ways of knowing, and also to see through the other eye with Western ways and strengths of Western ways of knowing, and to use those knowledges and to pair them together to really provide a wraparound holistic support system. And it's a guiding principle that really teaches us to use both of these practices for the well-being of others and to live in harmony. So many children who think and experience the world differently have unique sleep needs. A two-eyed seeing approach can assure that we're maximizing our sleep hygiene with views from both sides of the spectrum. And we blend evidence-based practices and strategies with a cultural knowledge in order to do this. And we acknowledge that some children may experience heightened sensitivity to sensory factors, and they may have sleep disruptions. We also want you to feel seen and heard. And sleep is difficult even on the best of days. So So we just have to look at it like a skill and how can we build this skill? And it's a skill that can be built just like anything else. So we're going to discuss incorporating traditions to ease transitions into sleep. And we always see differences as gifts as opposed to deficits. And yeah, how does this work with the medicine wheel? So sleep, obviously, it interacts with every part of the medicine wheel. But the medicine wheel really reflects who we are at our core. It's guiding us towards balance in a holistic way. It invites us to explore our spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental health, encouraging us to consider what we need to be well. Sleep and rest are among the most powerful and essential aspects of our overall wellness. Without healthy sleep, we struggle to function at our best and move through life in a good way. We need sleep, as again, it touches on each of these quadrants. It is said that when we sleep, our connection to creation becomes more open. We dream, we journey, we go through all these different worlds, and we walk through different planes of existence. And these are just a few examples of different topics that we're going to be covering today. And we're going to look at these four quadrants in more detail later on in the presentation to really build those practices for sleep hygiene. Good.
Yeah, thank you. In Western medicine, sleep is also considered an important element of a healthy lifestyle. And although sleep may seem primarily related to physical health, this is not entirely true. Not entirely accurate. While the physical health of the brain significantly affects our sleep patterns and behaviors, sleep is also depending on several other factors. And that is why in modern Western medicine, you can see that not just healthcare is working on, supporting people with healthy life choices, like healthy sleep patterns. And ABA is one of those fields where we can support people if there are any difficulties with sleep and sleep behavior.
Miigwech. Yeah, and then we'll kind of hop over to sleep disruptions. So Elder Hilton King, he kind of touched on this and he sat down with me and a few others on our team. We kind of got to talk about these topics in more detail. But he really teaches that the quality of life and the quality of our sleep is shaped by how we begin our day. So that sleep really begins when we first wake up in the morning. And when considering sleep disruptions and the factors that may influence our rest, it's important to recognize that children who experience unease or stress throughout the day may struggle to regulate or rest at bedtime. I think that's where regular check-ins come in before bed because it helps ensure that children feel safe and supported. But if that child's sense of safety is disrupted, um, that whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, they can go to bed feeling disrupted, unbalanced, and unregulated. And depending on the depth of this disruption and this break of safety, it can take time before their sense of safety is fully restored again. But safety is shaped by many different experiences throughout the day, interactions at school, friendships, social environments, social media, and even small personal moments like misplacing a favorite toy or feeling left out. Larger challenges such as bullying or feeling unheard can also create feelings of distress that can follow a child into their sleep. So, approaching the child with compassion, Hilton stresses that and recognizing the hardships that they have led up to bedtime can help children let go and really release that weight before they drift to sleep. Let's pass it over to you, Karina.
Thank you. Yeah, and let's talk about sleep on more depths from Western perspective, right? Our sleep goes through different stages during the night, kind of like a cycle. And you can hear that term sometimes being used, sleep cycles. When the cycle gets messed up, it can lead to sleep problems. So think about it like this. We have REM sleep where we dream and REM sleep, which is a deeper sleep. These stages cycle through the night, with deeper sleep happening more in early hours and lighter sleep towards the morning. But here's the thing, and sometimes it's a problem. A bunch of stuff can mess with the cycle. Things like noise, light, uncomfortable room, or as Cody mentioned, to stress or anxiety, they all can lead to disruption of your sleep or your child's sleep. And of course, irregular sleep schedule, caffeine, or certain medications can also throw things off. So, sleep might be affected by external factors, lifestyle factors, medical conditions, medications, stress, and anxiety. And so, what is the difference, you might ask, between healthy and unhealthy sleep? Healthy sleep characterized by falling asleep quickly, apparently within 20 minutes. I think I will never be. Yeah, I don't believe that, but this is what they say. So 20 minutes usually is the time within which a healthy sleeper should fall asleep. Maintaining sleep independently throughout the night, that's another sorry, another characteristic of the healthy sleep habits. Achieving enough sleep for one's age, waking independently or easily in the morning. So without those, pushing the whole family members, like the whole family trying to wake you up. Apparently not healthy. So unhealthy sleep is characterized by taking too long to fall asleep. It's called sleep latency. So you or your child is in bed, but the eyes are open and still wide awake. Familiar for a lot of us. Bedtime resistance is another thing, is not wanting to go to bed. And I think that's when we talk about kids, it's a common topic as well. Disruptive awakenings through the night. Achieving too little sleep for one's age, that's also can be considered a sleep issue. Difficulty walking in the morning. Daytime drowsiness or sleep when not appropriate for one's age. So understanding both perspectives on the sleep cycle and its potential disruption provides a valuable framework for identifying and addressing sleep challenges. And that brings us to next slide where we can talk more about, thank you, Cody. How do we support the whole family when it comes to sleep? And again, healthy or unhealthy sleeping, right? So although we usually talk about sleep as a personal issue, right, or personal topic, uh, we need to remember that it always affects the community around us, the whole family around us, right? And you can see here on the slide, the first sentence goes here, sleep affects everyone, right? So if you have someone in your family sharing the space with you, and this person is struggling with sleep. So you might notice that this person probably a bit grumpier, right? Because sleep does affect mental health and physical health. So maybe that person might not be able to fulfill all the tasks, daily tasks that they were planning and they're usually capable of doing. Sleep affects relationships, right? So the grumpy person is not the first, not the best to be around, and it's difficult sometimes, right? And if we think even globally, even bigger than just family unit, we can talk about that. If family as a unit doesn't have good sleeping habits, they don't have enough sleep in the family, they affect the community as well, right? Because now you have not just one person that is not very maybe happy in the moment because of lack of sleep, but you have many people, and that is something that is important and important to remember when for us as caregivers or us people supporting the families that everyone affects everyone. And I'll pass it to Cody and to talk more about the community effects.
Absolutely. And you know what? Sleep does affect the community. And when we look at Indigenous families, some do experience different family systems not comparable to the nuclear family. So this incorporates grandparents, aunties, uncles, and even community members, like we said, the community. And Karina, yeah, you're right. When one person struggles, we all do. If someone in your family is struggling sleeping, whether due to stress, trauma, or environmental factors, the sleep effects can be felt by those who provide support. So sleep disruptions can influence the ability to participate in ceremonies, daily responsibilities, and community connections, which can impact your household. But it's important to shed light on intergenerational trauma as well. caused by the impacts of colonization, residential schools, and systemic oppression. It can manifest in disrupted sleep patterns as well, which can be passed down through the family for generations. Many Indigenous families can experience heightened stress, which can contribute to difficulty sleeping. Addressing sleep holistically may involve not only bedtime routines, but healing practices that acknowledge historical trauma, including land-based activities, land-based healing, traditional parenting approaches, and community support. Sleep is not just about rest, but maintaining balance, maintaining that harmony and connection to self, family, and, creation itself. So, miigwech.
Oops, sorry, lost my mouse for a second here. Thank you, Cody. Yeah, now let's talk a little bit about statistics, and let's talk about sleep in the communities of neurodivergent people, shiny people, right? So sleep problems are more common in people, in autistic people, affecting 50 to 80% of children and about half of the adults of this population. Research indicates that autistic children present with more sleep challenges than the general pediatric population. What is the impact? So, sleep problems can worsen social functioning, emotional symptoms, and quality of life. They're also linked to daytime sleepiness, poor attention, increased anxiety, and mood dysregulation. And again, it's the same thing that would happen with what we call neurotypical person with the lack of sleep, right? But again, back to the numbers, sleep disruptions, sleep problems are more prevalent. So that is partially why we might see more behavioral challenges and difficulties in our kiddos on the spectrum, for example. Sleeping and learning. Learning is also affected by sleep. It plays a vital role in memory consolidation, learning, and cognition, development of cognitive functions. Research highlights that sleep deprivation can negatively affect attention, concentration, and academic performance, making it harder for children to succeed in school. Sleep and behavior. As I mentioned just a few seconds ago, right? Sleep does affect behavior as well. And back to a few slides back when we were talking about the grumpy people, right? So if you had enough sleep, I'm sure by yourself you can remember like when you had enough sleep, you're happier, you're more flexible, you're more easy to compromise maybe with some things, right? Or like close your eyes on whatever something happened, it's okay, it doesn't bother me. And the opposite can be when you have this lack of sleep, right? And again, back to our kiddos, same thing, but we can see it more maybe in more exaggerated form through their behaviors sometimes. Sleep and general health, that's another thing. Sleep is crucial for physical health, and we talked about it, right? Chronic sleep deprivation can increase the risk of developing other health problems, such as, for example, weakened immune system and poor growth. Benefits of improved sleep. It's the opposite topic, right? Improve learning and behavior. Overall well-being is getting improved. Physical health, of course, is going to be better. And so again, back to ABA. ABA is one of the fields that does work and support families and parents, caregivers, I should say, with working on healthy sleep. And ABA focuses on understanding the context and setting events that influence behavior, including sleep. Factors like sleep environment, bedtime routines, and daytime activities, they all play a role in how well a child sleeps. And that brings us to discussing sleep hygiene. While good sleep habits, bedtime routines, and consistent sleep schedule are important, they alone may not completely resolve sleep problems, especially if it's a shiny child, right? Shiny person. However, they're an essential part of any effective sleep intervention plan. So sleep hygiene might not be the answer for everything, but it's very, very important. And we can talk a little bit more now how to maybe work on it, right? About the sleep space. Thank you, Cody. Cody's the master of the slides. I I honestly haven't seen anyone being so smooth with those slides before. Usually, like, you have to nudge people. So thank you so much for being so on time all the time. And the sleep space, right? This is the part of the sleep hygiene, part of the one of the elements that will help us hopefully to build those healthy sleep habits. We want to aim for a bedroom or sleep space that's cool, dark, and as calm and quiet as we can reasonably make it. But again, I just want to mention that we do talk about sleep space, that it should be cool, dark, calm, and quiet. Those are the common needs for a majority, like a big part of the population, right? But sometimes your child or yourself might have different sensory needs, how we call them. So if you like a little bit, like, I don't know, like a little candle, not safe though. So maybe not the correct, not the real candle, but those fake ones these days, or like night lights or something like that. Is the comfort for you or your child? Do that. The main message is make it as comfortable as possible. So try to keep the room tidy and free of clutter, and maybe put away some of those toys that might be a bit too stimulating for the bedtime. This is true for yourself as well. So the idea is to create a signal that it's time to relax. So the clear room, specific lighting or no lighting at all, temperature, specific temperature, all those little elements supposed to signal your body and your child that, okay, this is time to sleep, this time to relax and maybe have some recharging moment, right? Try to ensure, if possible, that environment your child falls asleep in is the same environment that they will wake up in. If they wake up in the middle of the night in a different environment, it will be very hard for them to fall back asleep in this new environment. Again, imagine yourself if you fell asleep somewhere and then you woke up in the middle of the night in a totally different space. It's disorienting, right? It's probably anxiety inducing as well for some. So that is why we recommend to maybe try and keep the same space for falling asleep and waking up. So again, bringing that consistency. Another example, if a person falls asleep with the light on, then they will be disoriented if they wake up when the lights are off. Again, back to that little maybe night light, right? Maybe try to, if possible, keep it there for them to be consistent. And remember, peaceful sleep space isn't just for the kids. We all deserve a relaxing environment to recharge in. So let's make sure the whole family has a comfy and calming sleep setup. It'll make a world of difference for everyone, for everyone's well-being. And now we can talk about sleep prerequisites. So we've talked about creating relaxing sleep space. What are the sleep prerequisites? Those are some skills that can help kids become awesome sleepers. So those are kind of like little skills that they should and might already have that will help them enhance their sleeping abilities. And we can teach them. During the day, so bedtime doesn't have to be a struggle. First, let's talk about calming down. It is easy to think that wearing kids out will guarantee good sleep, but it's not true. Um, it's very often not true. We can't expect our kids to suddenly become still, quiet, and alone at bedtime if they haven't practiced it during the day. And that is why we recommend incorporating some calming and relaxing activities during the day, right? So throughout the day, let's mix in some calming activities, some reading, maybe some stretching, gentle stretching, maybe some sensory toys, right? Sensory play, in even just 1 minute, every half hour, if it's a younger child, should be enough. So we just need to remind them and their bodies that, this is how it feels when you're relaxed. This is how it feels when you're calmer. Children who have difficulty calming down during the day may also struggle with settling down for sleep at bedtime. And that might lead to bedtime resistance that I mentioned before, or night wakings. Teach kids how to take breaks from their activities and to deep breathe, relax their muscles, or practice mindfulness. Mindfulness, that's another very good exercise for every age. Yeah, and so by practicing that, they will get used to these feelings, right? So next one is separation from the caregiver. So usually in ABA, independent sleep is the main goal, and that is something we work on. And some families that struggle with that and would like to teach their kids, independent sleeping skills. We have some strategies too. Really depends on every family. So sometimes, we need to know the story of this specific family to work on it. But there are some techniques, and we will mention them later on during our presentation. And finally, following routines. Kids thrive on routines, and bedtime is no exception. If they're used to following routines during the day, it will be much easier for them with time to stick to a consistent bedtime routine. Establish clear and predictable routines for daily activities such as mealtime, playtime, and getting ready for bed. And I know life is so busy. For some of us, it's very, very busy, very different. And it's not always easy to have very, meticulous schedule where it's like step by step, and it doesn't have to look like that. Again, later in our presentation, we'll present some examples of visual schedule, and sometimes even for a day, it can be very, very simple, just to have an idea, right? Like wake up, go to school, come from school, prep for your bed. And that could be everything, because sometimes we don't know what's happening between all those, right? It can be different activity every day. So visual schedules should not be difficult, should not necessarily be very elaborate, because I know sometimes that might be a concern for some caregivers. And that's why they don't want to even try using them. So, sorry, back to our topic. Remember, we don't have to fight bedtime bottle, but working on the skills that I mentioned, during the day, we can set our kids up for better sleep, for sleep success. And yeah, just remember consistency, patience, and routine. Those are keys to be successful. All right. I think it's me again. And this is actually on the slide. You can see the example of visual schedule. As you can see, it's only what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements, and it can be even shorter, right? So this specific little visual schedule is for bedtime routine, right? Right before. But it can be a whole schedule for the day, looking that. And so what is the rationale behind establishing a bedtime routine? Bedtime routines are important because they signal sleep and prepare the body for sleep by calming brain and decreasing core temperature. They should be calming, predictable, and occur at the same time each night. So typical routine may include winding down with a calming activity, such as reading a book followed by brushing teeth, changing into pajamas, and going to bed at the same time each night, at least approximately at the same time. Home-based ABA therapy emphasizes the importance of reinforcing these routines by gradually shaping the child's behavior and rewarding them for following the routine. They learn to associate the steps with going to bed. Again, it will be a signal. So the hope is that those activities are signaling the body, preparing body for relaxation and sleep. And over time, this process reduces resistance to bedtime and helps children settling into a more predictable sleep schedule. And I'll pass it to Cody now.
Miigwech, Karina. Yeah, you can rest your voice for a moment here. But yeah, we're going to talk about some bedtime rituals. So prior to every single one of these workshops, I like to sit down with our CRAs and elders when I get the chance. And our CRAs are our cultural resource advisors. So they can guide us on what we should include in these presentations and maybe collaborate with me. But I was able to sit down with Alicia Mendez, one of our CRAs, and we spoke on ceremony and how we have the ability to let go of what we've been holding on to throughout the day. There are special ceremonies dedicated to the process of letting go, but one way we choose to do this is through sleep and rest. We collect moments throughout our day that weigh heavy on us, heavy on our shoulders, children's and adults alike. By creating your bedtime ritual, you're setting the stage for yourself and for your child to have good rest, to be able to let go and decompress on what may be weighing on us. We can do this through many different strategies. As you can see here, I've kind of set the stage. So first we want to really make sure we're feeling safe, that we have that safety. And then we're going to start to like individualize our routine. What do we want to include in our routine? We can take cues from our children, so we can, just be mindful of what you're seeing from them. Are they flushed? Are they tired? What can you see in terms of that? And then we're going to talk about like a bit of empowerment and sleep styles. So what does empowerment mean to you? Does this mean having the bed closer to the floor so your child can roam in their bed, in their bedroom? Does it mean having, distracting items put away so then the children can, focus on their sleep and getting that good medicine? And then, yeah, we're just setting the stage for sleep. So all of this leading up to it is what's setting the stage for sleep. But we can do this through, again, many different strategies. And I'd like to talk about smudging. So smudging is encouraged to be used whenever you feel you're needing it. At times, it can even be prior to bed. That's when I like to do it as well. Your little ones may fear what monsters may hide in their closets or under their bed, but incorporating smudging into your routine could establish a feeling of safety for children and that sense of reassurance that, oh, they got rid of the monsters for me, Smudge, it's doing its good work. It's clearing those negative energies out. But we can also do this through many different ways too, such as spray smudge. So spray smudge, it's sold by a lot of local vendors, but one of our CRAs makes it as well, Eden. She's great, and it's essentially taking your medicines and boiling them down and going through a very specific process to get them turned into essential oils so we can just spray. I know a couple friends spray their pillows before bed, so that helps. But we can also potentially sleep with our medicine pouch under our pillow. This provides some security for me too. This has medicines in it. Some people like to carry like medicines that are close to them. I like having sage in here for sure. But you can have sage or lavender, something that's calming for sleep. And having those cedar baths as well. So we can take cedar, we can really infuse it into the bath as we're warming and cleansing ourselves. But water on its own is a form of cleansing, right? We use water every single day. Cleanses, goes through us, goes through our liver, right? So it's cleansing, we're cleansing. And we use this to wash the day off of us as well. So it's good to, take that and rinse those negative energies as well. But yeah, we can use our drum or our shaker. So individuals ourselves, we all come from the womb, right? And we're familiar with the rhythm of the drum because we were first introduced to it in utero. So that drum replicates the heartbeat, the mother's heartbeat. And the shaker replicates the sound of the rushing blood. So we can hear it flowing throughout us. And, and it's connected to our umbilical cord, that rushing, that flow. These noises soothe the regulatory systems and it can provide us a sense of calm. And yeah, I spoke on bathing. We can use those medicine baths, so cedar baths, the cleansing with the water. And when we set the stage for sleep, when we first wake up, so that's what Hilton had mentioned. He'd said, the day starts. When the day starts, that's when we can set the stage for sleep. So what we choose to do throughout the day can impact this. Let's say that your little one had a hard day at school or programming. We can encourage safety with our presence when they return. We can take that anxiety, those fears, that discomfort, and we can release it with a hug. And sometimes our little ones, with the gift of being different, they don't really like to be touched, or maybe that's just not in their comfort level yet, or they don't know how. Those children may not be open to physical contact, but I've seen caregivers use blankets and wrap them tightly to get that pressure, right? That soft pressure. There's many ways to practice this so we can help impact their days when they come home. Practice this on yourself too, those deep pressure exercises. It does calm the regulatory nervous system, right? But develop that routine with your little one. You and your child know each other best and what works for you. So developing your routine alongside your child will help foster that connection And giving your child options on what to sing, what to read, what stretches to do will give them a sense of self and build on that decision-making skill. But most importantly, consistency. And the role of storytelling, so I thought this one deserved its own slide. But Indigenous storytelling is deeply tied to the land, to the ancestors, and to the cycles of life. Each story carries meaning beyond its words, teaching children about their place in creation, the importance of balance, and how to walk in a good way. These stories often encourage emotional regulation, promote connection and security, especially through reinforcing their child's cultural identity. We can pass down knowledge through these stories. It's important for children to know their teachings. They learn about responsibility, about kindness, and respect for all living things. But listening to a story before bed naturally creates a calming, rhythmic transition from the busy energy of the day to the quiet of the night and invites children and caregivers to slow down, to focus, and ease into rest. Traditional storytelling can soothe the mind and body. So the gentle cadence of a spoken story or a lullaby slows the nervous system, reducing stress and promoting relaxation. It encourages dreaming. Many stories acknowledge the power of dreams as a place of guidance where teachings can continue even in sleep, and it strengthens bonds. Sharing stories before bed reinforces relationships between caregivers and children, which deepens emotional connections. And websites such as Ojibwe.net have many teachings that are cataloged that go into stories, into different songs, into different developments, early years, into childhood. So I think that's a really good resource. Yeah, normally we'd get to our break here, but we're gonna keep kicking on. We're gonna move on to sleep needs.
Thank you, Cody. Now everyone's going to have to hear me talking again. And let's explore how we can help our kids get the sleep they need. And a few slides before, I was just talking about the routines, right? And that is important to teach our kids those routines and those special several activities during the day. And I was saying that it's going to be useful because then it will signal their bodies, like with time, those activities will signal their bodies and teach their bodies that it's sleep time, right? It's a signal for sleep. And that is why routines are important. But it is not just about the routine. It is about the schedule too, right? When you schedule, meaning like when you go to sleep, when you fall asleep, and when you wake up. Having consistent sleep schedule, going to bed and waking up around the same time each day helps regulate our body's natural sleep-wake cycle. Think of it like an internal clock that tells you when to sleep and when to wake up. And when we stick to a regular schedule, we keep that clock running smoothly, making it easier to fall asleep and wake up feeling refreshed. Again, that consistency that we've been talking about all day, and you'll hear us talking about it again and again. Now, here's the thing. Sleep needs change as kid grows. So what works for a toddler won't work for a teenager. Unfortunately, I wish we had one answer for everything, but we need to adjust bedtimes and wake up times as our kids get older. And this diagram on the slide gives you a general idea of how much awake time and sleep time kids need at different age. But remember, these are just averages, and so every child might have their own needs, right? Specific to them. And speaking of adjusting the needs, let's talk about the waking windows. They're the periods of time a child is awake between sleep periods. And why are they important? Because knowing the right waking window for your child's age can help you figure out the best bedtime and nap time. So imagine your child's body is like a battery. I really like this analogy. Lori came up with it, I think. So I love it. So during the day, your kids, they're little batteries, they use up energy and their battery drains. The waking window is all about making sure they've been awake long enough to drain that battery just to the right amount before trying to recharge with the sleep. What happens if the waking window isn't right? If you put a child to bed too early, meaning their waking window was too short, they might have trouble falling asleep. They might resist going to bed or wake up more during the night. It's like trying to plug in a battery that is still half full. On the other hand, if you put them to bed too late, meaning their waking window was too long, they might get overwhelmed and have a burst of energy, making it hard to fall asleep. So it's like running that battery down to zero and then trying to jumpstart it. It's going to be more effort, right? Average sleep needs by age. So infants from 0 to 1 year usually need 14, 15 hours, including naps, and I wish I could have that. As they approach 1 year old, they might be awake for about 5 hours between sleep periods, with one nap lasting 1 to 3 hours. Toddlers, meaning 1 year old to 3 year old, they in average need 11 to 14 hours of sleep and gradually need to transition from 2 naps to 1 nap to no naps around 3 years old. Preschoolers, 4 years to 6 years old, day sleep needs are on average 10, 11 hours, and their ability to stay awake for longer periods are kind of strengthened. So they might stay awake for 13 to 14 hours. School-age children, 7 to 11 years old. So still they need lots of sleep, about 9 to 10 hours, and their waking windows around 14 to 15 hours. Teenagers, so 12 plus years old, sleep needs around 8 to 10 hours, and it might be affected by hormonal fluctuations. So that needs to be taken into consideration. So by understanding those waking windows, you can create a consistent sleep schedule that matches your child's needs, leading to better sleep. Obviously taking into consideration if there's no other issues that are affecting the sleep. Okay, we're on positive reinforcement now. So let me talk quickly about positive reinforcement. So we already described some techniques, and we'll be talking about some techniques later on. Just a reminder, at least from ABA perspective, we like to use and we emphasize the importance of using of reinforcement. It's, in simple words, it's a reward. And on the slide, you can see kind of samples, right, of those so rewards, reinforcing. So it can be just something tangible, for example, computer time for a lot of kiddos, or just verbal praise, right? Or in general, working with motivation. So we just wanted to emphasize and remind everyone that using reinforcement as opposed to maybe punishment is a more effective and more useful technique that is used. It's strengths-based, and it focuses on child's strengths or gifts and capabilities rather than their sleep difficulties. And maybe we can move on to the next part where I'll talk about some screen time that can be a tangible, can be used as a reward, but also might be difficult, might create some difficulties for our children and ourselves, right? So impact of screen time on sleep. How screen time affects sleep. Using screens like phones, computers, or TVs, especially before bedtime, exposes us to blue light, and blue light disrupts melatonin production. Melatonin is a hormone that helps signal to our body that it's time to sleep. So it's not just routine, it's also hormones in our body. Without enough melatonin, it becomes difficult to fall asleep, and the quality of sleep can decline. As a consequence, we can experience delayed sleep onset and reduced sleep quality because blue light exposure before bedtime lowers the depths and restorative quality of sleep. So to work around this issue, there is a very interesting concept that's called digital sunset concept. A digital sunset is the practice of gradually reducing screen time and eventually eliminating screen at least an hour or two before bedtime. Just like the natural sunset signals the end of the day, digital sunset helps signal to your brain that it's time to wind down and get ready for rest. Why it works? Because reduced blue light exposure, right? So less screen time before bed helps restore melatonin production, allowing you to fall asleep more easily. And it creates a wind down routine. Disconnecting from screens gives your brain the opportunity to shift into a more relaxed, sleep ready state. How to implement digital sunset? Set a specific time each evening to run off your device. Sorry, to turn off your device. The more consistent you are with the routine, the easier it will be to fall asleep and improve sleep quality. For individuals who are maybe more visual learners or they need a little bit more support in communication, you can use some visual schedule, but you can use visual schedules for yourself. I always say, like, if you think about if you have an agenda for your day, right? Like if you write down your task list for a day, this is a visual schedule. So sometimes that might help. It kind of might prompt you, nudge you that, okay, that is a reminder for me to maybe put it aside and stop staring at my screen. Break down the day into clear visual blocks of time. Showing when screen time is allowed and when it's time to disconnect might be very helpful, again, for our, especially for our younger children, right? Another part of this implementation is gradually reducing and reinforcing. So start by gradually reducing screen time each evening, perhaps maybe starting with a 10-15 minutes reduction, and increase it as you go. And make sure you reinforce, right? If your child said, okay, I'm fine with, turning off my screen 15 or 10 minutes before I usually do it, please reinforce that. Make sure they know that they did a great job, because that's going to be motivational, and they might be, more willing to proceed with that. And I'll pass it over to Cody.
Yeah, I think now's a good time also to sprinkle in a little bit of a teaching regarding social media. And I think we're all pretty aware of how social media can affect a person's livelihood, about their mentality. But Hilton King, he really spoke on how social media comes from where there is goodness on social media and we can see people doing good things. There also is a lot of darkness too. And especially in our teenagers and our young adults, where they kind of start webbing into that more than more than other people usually would. So this is the time where a lot of their friends are on social media. A lot of their social life is on social media, which is on these phones. And I remember even myself, like I grew up with an iPod Touch and it was like 14 and I used to love going on that thing after my mom told me to go to bed, right? So I could only imagine that young adults, teenagers now are doing this still, and they might be facing a lot of darkness on there as well. So it's good to check in again with our kids and notice like where they're at in terms of their mental health too, because like we said, mental health has a big portion of sleep and how we can get to sleep. Because if we're feeling anxious before bed, which is usually the case if you're doom scrolling on TikTok, then that might prevent them from getting that fulsome rest, right? So I think it's just a good way to keep an eye on that. It's just something to be aware of. I'll pass it back over to you, Karina, to circle this slide up.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we can continue because we to the next slide, sorry, because we talked about digital sunset, and now I want to talk a little bit more promoting independent sleep, right? And here for this topic, we're going to focus on two main strategies. It's shaping and fading. So shaping is all about breaking down the big goal of independent sleep into smaller, easier steps. And think about it like building a staircase to help your child climb up to that goal one step at a time. Great thing about shaping, it doesn't have to be perfect right away. So when we're shaping a behavior, we're working with skills that already exist. So again, the gifts that our child already has, right? We can celebrate those small wins along the way, even if they might not look like they're, wins sometimes. So, for example, your child is used to falling asleep with the lights on. They might be afraid of the dark or find it hard to settle down without the light. And we can use shaping to gradually help them become comfortable sleeping with the lights off. And that is approximately how it might go. So, first, baseline. So, baseline, it's without any interventions, how the child falls asleep with the lights on. First step of the shaping, instead of turning the lights off, completely dim them slightly. If you're using a bright overhead light, switch to dimmer lamp. Or if you're using a lamp, use a lower voltage lamp, right? So it's just dimmed but not turned off. So next step, once the child got used to that, um, dim it a bit more. You can do this gradually over several nights. So it doesn't have to go boom, 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 like every night it's darker and darker. It can take some time. Again, it's very individual to the child and, the way they can tolerate. So the idea is to make it as disruptive as possible, right? As smooth as possible. And then just keep going. Continue making small adjustments to the lights. You might introduce a night light, or you're already using a night light. Switch to one that is, again, with lower voltage. And final step, eventually, when the child will be comfortable enough to fall asleep with the lights completely off, just make sure to celebrate that and move on. And here you go. You've shaped the behavior. Just remember, sorry, changes should be, as small as possible, as small as comfortable, I should say. The adjustment to the lighting should be very gradual, especially at the beginning. Positive reinforcement, again and again, we'll be reminding you about that. Use lots of praise and rewards that are safe to use and pleasant for a child to use. Use them to celebrate their successes at each step. Patience might be difficult, but it's also an important element. And make sure the strategy is individualized for your specific, for the specific child. So by breaking down the process into manageable steps and providing positive reinforcement, you can help your child overcome their fear of the dark and develop the ability to fall asleep with the lights off. And next, we're going to move to fading. Fading is similar. So let's talk about it. If you're currently lying down with your child until they fall asleep, the fading procedure might involve sitting next to the bed instead of laying down, sitting in a chair further away from the bed, sitting in a chair just outside of the bedroom door, standing in the doorway, leaving the room, but staying nearby, leaving the room and returning intermittently to offer brief reassurance, leaving the room completely. So fading is exactly what it is. It's gradually reducing the amount of assistance provided to the child to help them fall asleep on their own, kind of backwards shaping of the behavior. So the key is to do this gradually. Apologize for the noise. Giving your child time to adjust to each change. And remember, positive reinforcement is, again, your big, big friend in every strategy that you're using. So shaping and fading offer a more gradual and gentle approach to sleep training, which can be especially helpful for children that are neurodivergent, who might be more sensitive to sudden changes. And again, remember, consistency is the key. Whether you're shaping, fading, or using another method, be patient and stick with it. It might feel difficult at times, but just keep going and make sure you're reinforcing. And I think that brings us to some other interesting topics to talk about. Sorry. So we've covered a lot already, but I would like to acknowledge that sometimes sleep issues can be more challenging or persistent. If that's the case for your child, don't worry. There's still hope, and there is always a way to get support. If you tried the strategies we've discussed before and you're still seeing significant sleep disruption, it might be time to reach out and actually, get some help from behavioral analysts or your support team. They can help you to take a closer look at what's happening and develop a more individualized plan. And remember, just like with everything else, we need to consider our children's unique needs. When it comes to sleep, there is no one size fits all answer, especially for our kiddos who are on the spectrum or shiny children. And here are a few things to keep in mind. So, severity. Try to kind of think about how severe are the sleep problems, and this will help determine how much support you might need. Dependencies, meaning what does your child need to fall asleep? Identify these dependencies, and it can help you understand what might be keeping those sleep difficulties going. Triggers. What can be triggering for your child? What can trigger these problems with sleep? Are there any patterns you've noticed? For example, does your child have more trouble sleeping after certain activities, foods, or medication? Um, do changes in routine or environment seem to affect their sleep? Or maybe lack of change of routine, right? Individual needs, that's an important part as well. Every child is different, so consider their age, personality, sensory needs, and any other unique factors. And finally, another important aspect, family dynamics. How are we, how are the sleep challenges affecting everyone in the family? Something that we mentioned before. Are these, are there any cultural beliefs or practices that can be incorporated to maybe support your child? Um, and here are a few things you can start doing, while you're waiting for help. Um, Again, identify dependencies. You don't have to have specifically a person, a professional there. You might kind of start noticing some patterns. On this specific slide, you can see again like a tiny example of a chart that we are using in ABA, so tracking sleep. So writing down some patterns or just like, writing down some information might help you identify patterns. And tracking sleep can be tricky, especially with busy schedules and tired nights. But even a simple chart like, again, like the one on the slide can be helpful. And you can mark down when your child falls asleep, when they wake up, whether they're awake or sleep at different points during the night. Just remember, safety is always important, especially for our kiddos with autism. And if your children or your child has any behaviors that could put them at risk, like self-injury, sleepwalking, just make sure to talk to your support team about this, and make sure you get help to support your child. And I think I'm going to stop talking on that and I'll just pass it on to Cody. She'll talk about
Perfect.
other
Yeah.
topics. Thank you.
Our dream catcher teaching. So after those slides, it kind of makes me think, okay, well, I know that sometimes sleep disruptions can be linked to our sleep and our dreams that we're experiencing, and whether or not these dreams are bad, right? They might be scary. So that might be preventing some sleep. But I got these teachings from Alicia Mendez. She was so kind to share them with me. The Dreamcatcher teaching, it's connected to the understanding that life is circular and cyclical. And within Dnaagdawenmag teachings, they recognize the 13 moons. Each moon reflects different changes in the environment, but it also offers teachings on living the good life. So, for example, we're currently in the bear moon, a time when mother bears emerge from their dens after a period of rest, feeding, and caring for their cubs. And this is fitting for the timing of this workshop, I believe, because we can relate to the mother bear and how, we're kind of slowly crawling out of our caves. It's starting to get warm a little bit, the snow, the blankets melting, right? So we're starting to catch up on these things after some time that was spent in our dens all winter. And you'll see when we usually create dream catchers, you'll find that there are often 13 points around the loop to honor each moon and each teaching. Dream catchers are traditionally made with sinew, so that can get sticky, right? But it can also be made with yarn, which I'll be happy to announce that on our YouTube, Dnaagdawenmag, Binnoojiiyag Child and Family Services, we do have a teaching available for the public where you can make your own dream catcher. So be sure to check out our YouTube channel. And yeah, so dream catchers while they're made with sinew, they can get sticky, right? So they're placed above our beds, and they're used to catch the bad dreams with that stickiness. And you'll see too on this image that there's feathers and there's also beads throughout. Well, we get the question sometimes, how do our good dreams pass through? How do we have good dreams if the dream catcher is catching your dreams? Well, you'll see that the feather and the beads, typically the good dreams will pass through the beads, will pass through the feathers. So that serves that purpose. And sometimes people say, well, my dream catcher isn't working anymore, right? Like I'm still getting these bad dreams. And that could be for a couple different reasons. One, are we looking after our dream catchers, right? So like any other item that we have, like we take care of it, so especially like my drum, like what am I going to do for my drum? Take care of my drum, smudge my drum. Um, and for our dream catchers, we do the same thing. So we're going to want to smudge our dream catcher pretty regularly, to burn off those dreams from the sticky sinew, but we'll also put it in the sun as well. So the sun will reflect through and will shine rays onto the onto the dream catcher, and it'll also get rid of those bad dreams that way. If you're still experiencing something that might be coming up for you, and maybe it's a repetitive dream or something, maybe it's trying to speak something to you, maybe it's trying to say something to you, it could be potentially a message that's being passed down to you to maybe make you informed of something. Dreams and visions, they hold quite a weight, and they do, when you look into it, speak deeply on things that we might resonate with in reality, in our waking world while we're walking. So something that you could do is potentially reach out to an elder or a cultural resource advisor or someone close to you who has these teachings, and they can share potentially what that dream might be meaning to you, and how that dream affects you as well. But I'll be able to share now our dreams and visions from John Rice, who's just amazing. So let me stop sharing for one moment while I get this set up. Okay, include sound. Yeah. Okay, and how about sound?
Things that
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
you can do in your mind is that dreaming. Dreaming is something we do when we're asleep. You can dream, and your mind is always working. Sometimes your dream is you're dreaming about something that happened during the day, and your mind is processing it while you're asleep. But then there's another aspect of dreaming that happens that sometimes we call traveling. Maybe in your dream state you can see into the spirit world. Maybe you can see on the other side of the world. Maybe you can see into the future. Maybe you can see into the past. These are elements associated with what you can do with your spirit and your mind that can help you see things in your sleep. And in the morning you wake up, with a knowledge. So the interpretation of that knowledge comes later on as you speak to someone who understands what you've experienced. The other one is visions. You're awake, you see something happening right in front of you. You have a vision. So when you see that happen, that's while you're awake. You might see into the future. You might see something happening that's not right now, but you're seeing it like it's actually right in front of you. For us, we regard that as a gift. In the mainstream, when it becomes to have like a harmful aspect to it, if it becomes what they call a delusion, to them, a vision that's delusional is harmful, okay? Because it talks about maybe you're going to hurt yourself, maybe you're going to hurt someone. Generally, and in our understanding as Nishnabek, what happens is a trauma can make a vision become hard or bad because you've been traumatized to interpret your vision in a negative way. So then it becomes harmful to you, is the way we look at it. So what we try to do is we try to, address all those fears that have been put into you up until the time you reach puberty, so that you can understand those 5 aspects of what your mind can do: think, imagine, perceive, dream, and vision. When you deal with yourself in a good way and you understand that life is good, Binnoojiiyag, and that's what your spirit is looking for, is a good life. We remind you then at that age your spirit is good. Everything spiritual is good is how we look at that. So if there's been an influence on you that makes either one of these 5 capacities that you have with your mind, if it makes it appear to you in a harmful way, then we say something happened to you for you to perceive your gift in that way. So then we do a refocusing, reminding you that your spirit is good, that life is good, the thinking that you will do will be good thinking. Okay? The imagination you'll have will be good. The perceptions you have will be good. The dreams you have will be good. And the visions you have will be good. Those are things that we attempt to do as our young people go through these processes. And at one time, there was an education given to children at going through puberty. It was an actual teachings given to them so they could understand then what was happening to them and things weren't so frightful. So the mainstream, though, because they don't have the same understanding about the spirit, about the Binnoojiiyag, about the good life, about the spirit being good, they confine their focus on the mind, and they look at brain chemistry. If someone is having delusions, they figure they take a blood test and they do a chemical test on their blood, and they may see that something is missing or something is too much. Endorphins or those things that they call in modern science. So they give a medication to try to make an adjustment so that the delusions go away, is the way they do that. That's well and good. That's not a bad practice, but what needs to be done in concert with that is the spiritual teachings around what that youth is experiencing, the spirituality behind the vision that they're seeing, and also why does it appear bad to you? And they can talk about why it appears bad to you, and then they can look deeper into the better meaning or the good meaning of the message they're receiving. So those are things that are important from our culture, is the education of what happens to young people as they go through puberty. And dreams and visions are important because we talked about, we're people of prophecy. Sometimes, a bit of us goes ahead into the future and then comes back. There's elements around that are really important to convey to our young people. But one of the things we really need to reinforce as soon as someone comes and tells you, oh, I see this, listen to them. What do you see? And then even if it has a negative perspective, allow them that story. One of the things when years ago, when I first came up north, I worked in the mental health center in Penetang. One of the first things that I realized when I worked with the mainstream people there who were talking about delusions and psychosis, they tried to diminish the value of that experience. Just maybe saying it was a bad experience, they needed to be on medication for that. But at the same time, the person experiencing it, an experience is an experience is an experience. So if a young person comes to you with a story about what they've seen, is to listen to it, give them the value of that experience, and then to go from there so they can place that experience into their life. Maybe they can understand why they're seeing it in a bad way, and they can turn it into connecting with a spiritual view that it was a good message hidden under that. So that's what we do. And that happens oftentimes with dreams too. Bad dreams. Sometimes a bad dream is a result of a traumatic experience that makes the person interpret the dream in a negative way. So as much as we can, we try to convey the spiritual side to these things that we do as people. We have a spirit, it has a connection, it has abilities, and it has capacities, is what we remind ourselves. So that helps us deal with these things, and that our young people don't believe there's something wrong with them when they see something, when they hear something. These are things that what we can do for them is listen to them and acknowledge that experience first of all, and then after that, giving them the ability or the insight to interpret what it means for them, and that capacity that would lead to them being in a place where they fulfill their own life purpose. And in our culture, a good many of these young people would grow up and have traditional value, maybe a seer, a visionary, a healer of some kind who can use their gift for the people. So that's one of the ways that's different about how we look at things than someone who sees it as a harmful experience. Uh-huh.
Never gets old. Never gets old, though. He's great at that. He's great at walking us through and seeing that perspective. So impressive how he lays it out. He just sits and he speaks from the heart, right? It's amazing. Okay. Pick up. All right.
Right, and we'll jump right in, even though it's hard after this beautiful teaching. But let's talk a little bit about biopsychosocial model and sleep, right? As we discussed in our first workshop, intro workshop, being a part of hospital network CBHS or Mackenzie Health is using a biopsychosocial model. And this is the model we talked about its importance and how this framework is used to provide holistic approach within the Western medical practices, right? And we tried to connect it with the medicine wheel kind of connect some part of it, and we'll do it. We'll try to do it today. So the current slide illustrates the complexity of factors affecting our sleep, and you can see some examples of each part of the model and how they can be connected to the medicine wheel. So I'm just going to let the slide kind of guide you with that, so you can see the biological factors. Some examples could be unbalanced diet, inconsistent fluid intake, compromised physical health, right? And that could be connected with the physical part of the medicine wheel as well. So the same goes for social and psychological. And I think we can go and talk in more details right about each part. And we will start with physical. So creating a peaceful sleep space. This is again, we talked about it earlier and we'll talk about it right now, kind of like in the form of a takeaway. So environment, it makes makes lots of sense to prepare your environment to help you fall asleep. So make sure your bedroom is prepared, I would say in ABA terms of sensory pleasing for whoever is using this room, right? For your child or for yourself. Routine. So set a regular bedtime and wake up time, even on weekends. I know it might sound cruel, but you'll thank us later. So daytime activities, make sure you kind of interchange, if possible, some active activities and some calming activities, right? Encourage physical activity, but also avoid them to be happening close to the bedtime. So maybe reduce some foods, reduce caffeine intake if it's you who struggles with sleep and you are working on your sleep patterns. Instead, maybe use some herbal teas and medicine bath. Some physical comfort, right? Cuddles and comfort items. Some kiddos like, I don't know, smudging as well, right? Like a cultural piece. But some kiddos would like to have a cuddles before bed, or they like to spend some time with their favorite toy or have this favorite toy in their bed. So just work on that. And that will hopefully help you to work on the physical part.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Karina. Yeah, so these are our quadrants, right? So looking at this, we're seeing the mental or the mind portion, which is to the west of the medicine wheel, up close. This is up close and personal. So this slide kind of represents the creating predictability, and we can role model restful behaviors, right? So we can look at this and we can demonstrate calm bedtime habits. We can use storytelling as a guide. I spoke on how the importance of storytelling and the different regulation it can do for our bodies, right? So we can use stories to create that sense of safety and routine. We can use those visual schedules because that helps create that predictability, but also understand those routines for and through a child's view. We can use first then statements, so that can provide clear transitions for children. First brush teeth, then story time, right? So really breaking it down using that simplicity. Journaling, drawing, that encourages like quiet reflection before bedtime. We can do some guided imagery, which is really visualizing that peaceful place. So that might be for you or for your child just to get that sense of calm. Are we going to be counting sheep in our heads potentially? Maybe. Maybe we're dreaming of a beach somewhere. Let's just get in that nice headspace. Counting in rhythms, those repetitive counting or tapping can provide that mental stillness. We can use songs as cues. Like I said, that one participant who sang Hotel California every night, we can use the same short song every night to provide that structure. And then we could go through our four directions. Let's go through that. And what does that look like in terms of reflection? But we can use this to reflect on our day using teachings from each direction. We can encourage reflection within ourselves and within your child. And you can potentially do this activity together. So yeah, that's our mental up close.
Thank you. And that brings us to emotional part or selves element, right? And that is the realm of emotions, feelings, and our inner child. And I guess what we need to do to work on making this inner child feel more comfortable and safe to fall asleep, right? Some of the suggestions are name your feelings, encourage your child. And again, if you're working on yourself, try to express the emotions before bed, whether it's through words, drawing, simple hug, or we were talking about storytelling earlier, right? Whatever works in your household and whatever works in your relationship. Deep breathing, another activity that you can work on throughout the day, but also can work before bedtime. Gentle tapping, another very effective. Some people find it very effective. Reflect on joy. End of the day is is a good time to reflect on how your day went, what brought you joy. And I'm sure even difficult days can be filled with those little sparks of joy. Quality time, so spend a few minutes connecting with your loved ones or with your child before bed. Storytelling, again, that's something that mentioned. Singing, a dream catcher, that's an important part too, right? So incorporating all that might be very helpful on working on emotional element and enhancing your sleep habits and your sleep in general. Thank you.
But and then that's our spiritual portion up close. This is the north, represents the north of our medicine wheel. Yeah, bedtime, it's a time for connection, right? It's a time for rest, and it's very sacred to the individual. It's very different depending on which person you are, right? We all have individual sleep needs. So a warm bath, washing away the stress, transitioning into relaxation, water within itself is a form of smudging. Medicines, letting our medicines do that good work, keeping them nearby that can form that sense of security that's always with you, right? Creator is always with you, whether it's under our pillow, on our bedside table, whatever is comfortable with you. Gratitude, Karina kind of spoke on that, but practicing gratitude and role modeling this to children can provide children with a strong sense of self, as it allows us to be grateful for the life that we've been given and the gifts that we inherently have. Connection to the land, absorbing that natural light. So sun helps regulate the body's sleep-wake cycle and making it easier to fall asleep at night. Releasing that excess energy outdoors can prepare for rest. And listening to the sounds of creation. So that's the rustling of the leaves, the birds chirping, the wind swaying. It can promote a sense of stillness and can really practice that deep breathing of that fresh air. That also helps calm our nervous system and slows us down. Our teachings, the teachings of the dream catcher, it can promote security in our children as it allows them a sense of safety that if the bad dreams come, they will pass through and they may not come back for at least a while. It can provide reassurance before bed and it helps put less focus on the fear of one coming. And connection to community. At the end of the day, children sleep best when they feel emotionally and spiritually secure. A sense of belonging and connection will play a big role in this. Emotional safety leads to a better sleep. When children have that large circle and feel supported throughout the day, they can release worries and rest peacefully, reminding our children of the ancestors and ones that have passed before us and how they're there to protect us and are always a part of our hearts. So we can always remind them of that. But kind of want to transition into our practical takeaways. So thank you for listening to our voice for an hour and 45 minutes. But these are our practical takeaways. Definitely establish that bedtime routine. We talked about how we can individualize this with our own person. Create a safe, calming environment. I think that's really important, setting that stage for sleep for sure. Limit that screen time, watch for those sleep disruptions. Hopefully, now that we've kind of outlined what sleep disruptions are, you can see maybe the ABCs of it. What's the antecedent before? So, what happens before the sleep disruption? What's going on after? What's happening during? So, take a peek at that. We can do calming techniques, definitely. We can lean into that restfulness, that mindfulness, definitely those stories, songs, and building your bundles. So practice those teachings within your household, whatever feels right for you and whatever you resonate with, right? So a lot of this, our goal is to give you takeaways, and then you take what resonates with you. So whatever works and whatever you feel you can take away, that's great. This is our schedule. We're kind of moving through these because a lot of these are being released after we already have our schedule put out. Our Survey Monkey. So please take a few moments. We really appreciate this. If you could just take a picture of this QR code and go and rate our Survey Monkey and rate how we did today. So then we can do better, right? We want to do better. We want to grow. We want to develop this program. And how we can do that is through your feedback. So please, 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 please use this. And of course, if you do want to attend a live session in the future, then please take a picture of this. This will take you to our learning stream where you're going to be able to choose and reflect on which portion you want to tune in for, right? We got a few upcoming. And yeah, bi-weekly's Thursday, 10 to 12 p.m. or 6 to 8 p.m. in Rama, Peterborough, or Whitby. And we also have a virtual option available. And I hope you guys can reflect on what this meant to you. And we'll close off there. So I just want to say Chimigwech, everyone, whoever's watching this from wide, far, wherever you are. I hope you really appreciated sitting down with us because we appreciate sharing this information with you. So Chimigwech, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.